All right, testing. All right, part 17842, specification 3E seamless steel cylinders. Type size, surface pressure for the dot, 3E cylinders, seamless steel cylinders outside the diameter, not greater than 2 inches nominal length with less than 2 feet with a surface pressure of 1800 psi gauge steel. Open heart electrical steel uniform quality must be with the content of the percent not exceeding the following: carbon 0.55, phosphorus 0.45, sulfur 0.50. Identification: steel materials must be identified any suitable material method. Manufacturer cylinder must be manufactured to be by best of plan for the method. Know of the fact that the permit with the likely to weaken when the finished cylinder with appreciable with the reasonable smooth with the uniform likely surface finish is required. The thickness of the bottom of the bottom is under no condition to be less than 2 times the minimum wall thickness to the cylinder shell. Such bottom thickness must be measured within an area bound by a line representing with the points of the contact between the cylinder and floor with the cylinder is in a vertical position. All right, opening in the cylinder for the connection with the valve with the fuse plug. For the opening of the threads conforming with the following are required. The opening threads must be clean and cut and out without check for the gauge of the taper threads. When used, they must be length not less than specified with the American snare and taper pipe threads. Straight threads having at least 4 engaged threads. The authorized straight threads must have the tight fit with calculated end shear strength with at least 10 times the test pressure of at least cylinder with the gasket adequate to prevent leakage. As required, hydrostatic test cylinders must be tested as follows: with the one cylinder out of at least 500 or less must be suspected the hydrostatic pressure of 600 psi gauge or higher. The cylinder referred to in paragraph F1 of the section must be brought with the pressure within 600 psi gauge without fragmentation. Otherwise, showing the lack of the ductility must be held with at least 1200 psi gauge at 330 seconds without bursting, in which case it must be shoved with flat and tested without cracking with a 6 times the wall thickness made between the knife and the edge is wedged with a shape at a 60-degree angle. Rounded out a half-inch radius for the inspector report must suitably change the show. Resolve a later alternative flattening test. Other cylinders must be examined under pressure at least 300 psi gauge, not exceeding 4,500 psi gauge. Show no defect. Cylinder tested at the pressure at least in excess of 3,600 psi may burst the pressure of 7,500 psi gauge. When the test is specified in F2 with the pressure must be maintained at least 30 seconds if sufficient longer to ensure the complete examination. Leak test. The spun cylinder or the plug cylinder must be tested for leakage of the gas air pressure after the bottom of it is cleaned out and limited free with all the moisture subject to the following conditions and limitations. Pressure approximately the same as both, but not less than the surface pressure must be applied with one side of the finished bottom over an area with at least 16th of the total area of the bottom not less than 3/4 of an inch in diameter, including the closure for at least 1 minute during which the time the other side of the bottom exposed the pressure must be covered with water closely examined. In the case of leakage, except for the paragraph H of the section cylinder must be rejected if any leakage. If the spun cylinder is one of the enclosure deficient, finished cylinder has been well in the spinning process. The plug cylinder is one which the permanent closure in the bottom of the finished cylinder has been affected with the plug. Safety precaution: if the manufacturer effectively makes the test before the hydrostatic manufacturer of shall be designed with the test apparatus, the pressure is applied with the smallest area practicable around the point of closure, so to give the smallest point of volume and air gas. Rejected cylinder. Rejected treatment with the authorized rejected cylinder. Subsequent layer 2 of the cylinders must be all prescribed with is to be acceptable repair of the welding spanning. Not authorized spun cylinder. The rejected element of the provision in paragraph G of the selection may be removed from the spun cylinder category with the drilling or the remove of the defective material with the taping and plugging. Markings required for this 178.35 must be stamped plainly permanently on the shoulder of the top head of the neck for the side of each wall. 178.44 specification 3HG seamless steel aircraft. The type side of the surface pressure dot 3HG cylinder with seamless steel with water capacity not over the 150 pounds of surface pressure of the 900 psi gauge. Authorized steel, open heart, electrical furnace steel with a uniform quality must be with the heat of the steel may be with the investigation lifted in table 1 of the paragraph B with the checking chemical analysis slightly out of the specified range acceptable, satisfactory, and all other respects provided with the tolerance in table 2 with the paragraph B with it is not exceeded with the maximum grain size shall be 6 or finer. Grain size be determined with the accordance of the ASTME E1112, 11288 and IBR 171.7. The subchapter steel with the following chemical analysis is authorized, and then show the chemicals in the table analysis tolerance. Installation of material. Material must be identified by a suitable method of steel stamping with the heat identification may not be made with any air, but eventually become with the side of the wall cylinder. Damping depth of the stamping may not approach upon the minimum pressure wall thickness of the cylinder. Manufactured cylinder must be manufactured using equipment process adequate to ensure each of the cylinder must product conform with the requirements of the subpart. No fissure for the other defect of the permitted is likely to weaken the finish contained with the appreciably with the general surface of the finish may not exceed the roughness of the 200 RMSs. Identifying irregularity of such of the withdrawal marks of the scratches, pith, and etc. should be held with the minimum of the consistent with a good high static pressure of the vessel for manufacturing. If and the cylinder is not for originally fitted with the stuff of the defect that does not meet the finishing requirements, surface of the stream with the otherwise treat with eliminate with the defect with the point closure of the cylinder closed with the spring may not be less than 2 times with the prescribed walting of the cylinder shell with the cylinder with the contour must be hemispherically adhered. Ellipsoidal fear the ratio of the major and minor axis not exceeded between with the one with the concave side with the pressure. Welding, and brazing aim for the purpose of the whatsoever the prohibited except for the welding and spinning with the permanent of the closure over the bottom of the spun cylinders, machining and grinding to produce the proper surface of the finishing with the point of the closure is required. Wall thickness, minimum wall thickness. The aim of the cylinder must be 50 thousandths of an inch of the minimum wall thickness. It must be set for the wall strip. The minimum specified attach pressure 19 to 75% of the minimum tensile strength of the steel, as determined from the physical test required within paragraph M of the section, may not over the 105,000 psi. Calculations must be made by the following formula. Wall thickness hemispherical, bottoms permitted 90% of the minimum wall thickness. Each cylinder side wall may not be less than 50 hundredths of the 50,000th of an inch, and all other case thickness is no less than prescribed minimum wall. Heat treatment must complete. The cylinder must be uniformly properly heated prior to the test of the heat treatment of the cylinder. Authorized analysis must be as follows. All cylinder must be quenched in other suitable to medium sealed temperature with a quenchable. Most recommended the seal analysis must not exceed 1,750 degrees Fahrenheit. Steel must be tempered at a temperature not most suitable for the particular steel analysis, but not less than 850 degrees Fahrenheit. All cylinders must be inspected with a magnetic particle. The dye penetrate the method to detect presence of the quenching craft with the cylinder of the valve with the quenching craft that must be rejected. It may not be qualified. Opening similar connection of the valve with the fuse unplugged with etc. for the opening of the thread conforming to the following required opening with threads must be clean and cut even without the crack with the gauge. The tape of threads when even the length of the not less than specified with the natural gas tape of thread is required. American standard compressed gas cylinder with a valve outlet inlet connection. Straight threads have at least 6-inch gauge threads are authorized, and straight threads must have a tight fit with a calculated stress shear with at least 10 times with the test pressure for the cylinder. The gasket adequate to prevent the leakage as required. Hydrostatic test. Each cylinder must be withstanding the hydrostatic test. The followed the test must be with the water check with the other suitable method they operate so that they obtain the accurate method. The accurate data pressure gauge must permit the reading of the accuracy of the 1% of the expansion gauge must permit the reading of the total expansion. The accuracy of 1% per 10 of the cubic centimeter. The pressure must be maintained with at least 30 seconds sufficiently longer to ensure the complete expansion of the internal pressure applied with the heat treatment of the previous to the official test may not exceed 9% of the test pressure. If due to the failure of the test apparatus, test pressure cannot be maintained. The test may be repeated with the pressure increased with 10% of the 100 or 100 psi gauge, whatever the less permanent volumetric expansion may not exceed 10% of the total volumetric expansion. Test pressure each cylinder must be tested at least 5/3 of the time. Surface pressure cycling tested prior with the initial shipping with the specific cylinder cycle pressurization test must be performed at least 3 representative samples without the failure of the valve of the pressurization test must perform hydrocycle between approximately with the 0 psi gauge surface the pressure of the ray with not less than 10 cycles per minute. The adequate recording instrument must be provided. The equipment is not left on 10 of the periods of time prescribed by the paragraph of J1 of the section must be repeated one random sample out of each lot with the cylinder. Cylinder must be then subjected to the burst test. Allowed with the defined the group of the cylinder with the fabricated with the same heat with the seal. Manufacture the same procedure with the heat treat the same equipment under the same conditions of the temperature of the atmosphere may not exceed 200 cylinders. All cylinders used in the cycling test must be destroyed. Burst test one cylinder type with the random out with each cylinder must be hydrostatically tested with the destruction. Flattening test. A flattening test must be performed one cylinder of the test. Take it with the random out with each of the 200 or less placed in that cylinder between the wedge shape of the for the edge, having 6 degrees radius with a longitudinal axis of the cylinder with a must be 9 degrees angle with a knife edge of it during the test. For lots of 30 or less, the flattening test authorized to be made with a ring at least 8 inches long cut with the cylinder. Each cylinder subject to the same heat. The treatment of the thin cylinder physical test must be conducted to determine yield test during the elongation reduction of air over the material is followed. The test is required in 2 specimens of the one cylinder to take the random out of each cylinder. Specimens must conform to the following gauge length with at least 24 times the thickness width not over 6 inches, 6 times the thickness of the specimen exclusive of the grip ends of the main flattened with the grip ends may be flattened with 1 inch over the end of the reduced section with the size of the cylinder with does not permit with the straight and securing straight specimen. The specimen may be taken within the lane location direction may be straightened with the flattened could with the professional limited not by below specimen may be taken and prepared with the inspector report must show the connection record physical test detailed information regarding the such specimen, the heating of the specimen, but the aim of the purpose is authorized. Yield strength of the tension must be strength corresponding to the permanent strength of the 2/10% of the gauge length. The yield strength must be determined by either the offset method or the extension or underload method as prescribed in ASTM E8. is using extension underload method of the tool strain the extension underload with the corresponding with the traffic with a 2/10% strain occur with the determined with the sufficient accuracy with the calculating the elastic extension for the gauge length with the under appropriate load with the adding 2/10% of the gauge length with the elastic extension calculation must be made with the least module of 30 million. In an event with a controversy with the entire stress strain of the diagram must be applied with the yield of the strain with determined at 2/10% offset. For purpose of strain measure, the initial strain must be set with a specimen as under the 1200 psi of the strain indicator reading is set with a calculated course strain. Crosshead speed with the testing with the machine may not exceed 1/8 of an inch per minute during the yielding strength determination. Magnetic particle inspection. Inspection must be performed inside each of the container before closing externally each finish of the container. After heat treating the evidence of discontinuity and use which an opinion of the qualified inspector may be applicable to weaken the discrepancy for the durability of the cylinder must cover the rejection. Leakage test. All spun cylinders, plug cylinders must be tested for the leakage in dry gas, dry air, pressure after the bottom has been cleaned and is free with all moisture subject to the following conditions. Limitation pressure approximately the same as not less than surface pressure must be applied one side of the finished bottom over an area of at least on 1/16 of the total area of the bottom with not less than 3/4 of an inch of the diameter, including the closure at least 1 minute during the time of the other side of the bottom exposed. The pressure must be covered with water closely expanded. The indication of leak except for the paragraph Q of the six cylinders must be rejected, and if their spun cylinder is one which with enclosed finished cylinder has been welded by spinning process. Plug cylinder is one with a permanent closure for the bottom of the finished cylinder has been effected with the plug. Safety precaution with the manufacturer effective to make for this step before hydrostatic packs. Manufacturer shall be designed test apparatus over the pressure is applied with the smallest area practicable around the point of closure so the use of the possible volume of the air and gas. Acceptable result of the test result of flattening test. The physical test, the burst after the cycling test must be conformed with the following: flattening required without cracking with the 10 times with the wall. Think of it as a cylinder. No, I'm not going to ask anybody. And elongation release of the of the gauge length with the 24 time to the wall. The tensile strength of the knot will exceed 165,000 psi. Burst pressure must be at least 4/3 of the time of the test pressure cycling, at least 10,000 pressurization. Rejected cylinders reheat ends authorized. Rejected cylinders subsequent their cylinders must be also prescribed to acceptable repair, welding, or spinning. It's not authorized for each of the cylinders subject to the reheat treatment determined with the original manufacturer's sidewall measurement that must be made with verify the minimum sidewall thickness to meet the specification requirements after the final heat treatment. Marking cylinders must be remarked over the below strip of the type of the tube of the stamping in the area of the depth of the wall is to ensure the wall thickness of the dimension root stamping of the interior surface with equal to greater than minimum prescribed wall thickness. Stamping must be permanent and legible. Stamping on the sidewall and all authorized. Rejecting elastic expansion in cubic centimeter must be marked with the cylinder near the day of the test. Rejection elastic expansion is with the cylinder 1.05 times the original elastic expansion. Nameplates authorized provided that can permanently with the and securely attach with the cylinder attached by either bracing weld within not permitted attachment, but the soldering permitted to provide seal temperature to exceed 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Inspector's report and additional requirements of 178.35 of the inspection report must indicate the rejection elastic expansion in cubic centimeters. 178.45 specification 3T seamless steel cylinders type size and surface pressure for the dot 3T cylinders a seamless steel cylinder with a water capacity of 1,000 pounds made in the surface pressure of the 1,800 psi gauge cylinders must have the integral form of the heads of the concave of the pressure of the both ends inside head shape. There must be left square ellipsoidal in which with the major axis of the 2 times with the minor axis of the disc shape with the filling within 2 limit the permanent closure form with the spinning as are prohibited. Material seal. Open heart with the oxygen electrical furnace process. Steel with the uniform quality authorized with the steel analysis must perform the following, and they show the analyst tolerances. Heat steel made under the specification table the paragraph B with the ladle analysis, which is slightly over the specified range, acceptable, satisfactory in all other aspects. However, the check analysis tolerances should be tabled in paragraph B with the next C with the except of the provided in paragraph is C with approved by the department. Material seams, crack, laminations of their injurious defects not permitted. Material used identified any suitable method. Manufacturer general manufacturer requirements as follows: surface finish must be uniform, reasonable, smooth. The inside surface must be clean and dry and free of loose particles. No defect of any of the kind permanent likely with leak in the furnace cylinder. If the cylinder surface is not originally with a defect with the surface is made, assuming that otherwise treated with eliminate the defects, provided with minimum wall thickness is maintained. Welding and bracing with the cylinder not permitted. Wall thickness, minimum wall thickness should be such that the wall is minimum specified with the test pressure not exceeding 67% of the minimum tensile strength of the steel determined in physical test required in paragraph J through K. The section all well stress must be 90,500 psi with not permitted. The minimum wall thickness for any cylinder may not be less than 225,000 of an inch. Calculation strap cylinders must be made with the following formula, and then each cylinder must meet with the following additional requirements where they assume that the cylinder is horizontal with the support with the two ends with the uniformity load and tire length, load consistently weight with per inch with the length of the straight cylinder with a portion filled with water compressed with the specified test pressure. Wall thickness must be increased if necessary to meet the additional requirements. The sum of the two times with the maximum tensile strength at the bottom of the Fisher fiber bends due to the bending with C paragraph D2.2 of the section plus with the maximum tensile strength with the same fiber with the hydrostatic testing C paragraph D2.3 of this section may not exceed 80% of the minimum yielded strength with the seal with the maximum strength. The following formula must be used to calculate the maximum tensile strength due to the bending. The following formula must be used to calculate the minimum maximum longitudinal stress during the hydrostatic test pressure. Heat treatment with each complete with a cylinder must be uniformly properly heated to arrive with the testing as well, but each cylinder must be held with the proper temperature for at least 1 hour per inch for the thickness of the maximum thickness of the cylinder, then quenched with a suitable liquid medium with a habit of cooling rate not exceeding 80% of the water. Seal temperature on the quenching must be recommended with the seal analysis button as never exceed 1,750 degrees. The quenching each cylinder must be reheated and temperature for the transformation range of 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. 1,050 degrees Fahrenheit must be held at the temperature for at least 1 hour per inch for the thickness based on the minimum thickness of the cylinder. Each cylinder must be then cooled under condition recommended. The cylinder opening of the cylinder must comply with the following openings permitted with the heads of the opener inside of any standard opening of the head does not exceed 1/2 the outside diameter of the cylinder. Opening of the heads must be ligaments between opening at least 3 times the average of the whole diameter. No offset with the opening of the 2.625 inch of the diameter. All openings must be circular. All openings must be threaded. Threads must be compliant with the following. Each thread must be cleaned out without any check to the gauge. The thread taper threads with either the American standard pipe standard type, and they must be compliant with the requirements of NBS Handbook H28. Tape threads conform with the natural gas taper thread. The standards must be compliant with the requirements of NBS Handbook H28. Standard threads conform with the natural gas straight thread. The standards are authorized. These threads must be in compliance with the requirements of the NBS Handbook H28 hydrostatic. Each cylinder must be tested with the internal pressure of the water jacket method. The other suitable method to conform with the following requirements. A testing apparatus must be operated with the with the determine the accurate depth of the pressure gauge, give the permit with the reading of the accuracy of 1% of the expansion gauge, give the permit the reading of the total expansion of the accuracy of the 1%. Internal pressure applied with the cylinder with the after heated treatment, the aim of the before official test must be 90% of the test pressure. Pressure must be maintained sufficiently long to accurately complete with the expansion of the cylinder and locate the pressure for the help within 30 seconds. If due to the future failure to test apparatus, the required test pressure for the cannot be maintained with the test must be temperature repeat of the pressure increased by 10% of the 100 psi gauge. Whichever the lower the cylinder must be reheated with the reheat treated. Alright, permanent volumetric expansion of the cylinder may not exceed 10% of the total volumetric expansion required, and the test pressure of each cylinder must be tested with 5/3 of the time with the surface pressure ultrasonic examination after the hydrostatic test cylindrical section. Each vessel must be examined in accordance with the ASTM E213 shear wave E114 steam beam, straight beam, and the equipment used to examine the calibrated detected notch and to the 5% of the design minimum wall thickness is discontinued. Alright, a design minimum wall thickness is continuing the indication greater than produce the 5% of the notch for the must cover the rejection cylinder and left to discontinue repaired with the requirements of the section. Basic requirements: tensile sharpie with the impact test cylinders must be subject to tension sharpie impact fouls with when the cylinders are heat treatment with a blast running for the 2 tension specimen 3 carb sharpie inspection impact specimen must be determined one of the cylinder test ring from each. That's the last of the representative of the test must not exceed 200. Some of the cylinder of the heat treatment, the continuous run with the 2 tensions for the specimen, 3 with the RP impact specimens must be tested with one of the 3 cylinders test ring with each for a few hours with the loss of the production. However, the no case may not be delayed, but test lab based on the production proceeding is 2,000 cylinders. Each specimen, the tension and sharpie impact of the test must be taken with the side of the wall cylinder from the ring, which has been treated with the finished cylinder with the which for the specimen must be represented with the axis specimen that must be parallel to the axis of the cylinder. Each of the cylinder ring specimen of the test must be same diameter thickness of the metal. Furnace cylinders of the representative of the test ring must be at least 24 inches long with the cover during the heat treatment. The process of the simulate with this heat treatment process finished cylinder is represented with the test cylinder and the test ring with the representative of the one with the heat and furnace pads with the produced value with the other heat of the batch and previously been tested. Have been past tests that such tests do not represent the more than 200 cylinders from one heat. The test result must conform with the requirements specified in paragraphs J through K of the section. When the test results do not conform with the requirements specified by the cylinder represented with the test reheat treated with the test required repeated paragraph I 1 at 5 of the section. Apply with the retesting basic condition. Acceptable physical testing following criteria must be followed to obtain the acceptable physical testing result. Each tension specimen must have the gauge length of 2 inches of the one exceed within 1.5 inch except for the grip end of the specimen may not be flattened. Grip ends may be flattened within 1 inch of the end of the reduced section. The specimen may not be heated after the heat treatment is specified in paragraph D with the section. The yield strength of the tension must be struck with the corresponding with the permanent strength of the 2/10% of the gauge length. Yield strength must be determined by the offset method, the extension underload method described in the ASTM E8. For the extension underload method, the total strength of the extension underload with the corresponding with the strength at 2/10% permanent with the strength of the curve with the determinant and sufficient accuracy calculating elastic extension of the gauge length with the under appropriate load with the adding with the 2/10% of the gauge length with the elastic extension calculation based on the elastic module 30 million. However, the degree of the accuracy method of the question, the entire stress strain with the diagram must be applied with the yield strength with the determinant and 2/10% offset. For the purpose of the strain measurement with the little initial strength must be set with the specimen with the strength of 12,000 psi with the strain indicator reading set with the calculated with the corresponding with the strain. The crosshead crosshead speed of the testing machine will not exceed 1/8 of an inch per minute during the determination of yield strength. For each impact, the specimen must be sharply for V-notch type with a 10 millimeter with a 10 millimeter taken according with the paragraph graph 11 ASTM A333. When reducing the size of the specimen, it must be largest size obtainable. Except for the physical test result, the result of the physical test must conform with the following tensile strength with the may not exceed 1,550 psi. Elongation must be at least 16% of the 2-inch gauge length. Sharply V-notch impact with the property for the 3 impact specimen, which must be tested with the 0 degrees specimen may not be less than the values of fouls. After the final heat treatment, each vessel may be hardened to test the cylindrical section of the tensile strength equivalent with the hardness number for the obtained with not more than 1,650 psi. When the result of the hardened test exceeds the maximum permit with the 2 or more retests, it must be made. However, the hardness number they obtain with the retest must not exceed maximum permitted. Rejected cylinders. Reheated treatment with the authorized rejected cylinder. However, the reheated treatment with the cylinder subsequent to the path of the prescribed test of repair with the welding is not authorized. Marking must be done with the stamp of the metal with the cylinders. All marking must be legible located on the shoulder. Inspector reading additional requirements 178.35. Inspection report physical test must be indicated with the average value with the 3 times specimen with the minimum. And then show the table 1, and then we'll go into value of the one specimen each for the number of the 178.46 specification 3A seamless aluminum cylinders size and surface pressure 3A cylinder seamless aluminum cylinders maximum water capacity 1,000 pounds minimum surface pressure 150 psi authorized material identification of material construction must meet the following construction conditions. Starting stock of the must be cast stock with a traceable with the cast stock of material seen with the cracks and laminations other defects likely to weaken the pin cylinders may not be used with the match material that must be identified suitable method will identify with the alloy aluminum produced cast number the solution heat tree batch number and lot. Remember, the material must be uniform of the quality of the one only with the following heat treatment aluminum alloy table 1 2 is permitted. Ultra starting stock of the 100% ultrasonic testing ultrasonic inspected along with the length of the right angle of the central axis of the 2 positions 90 degree one another. The equipment of the continuous sanding procedure must be capable of detecting and rejecting internal defects such as cracks which have ultrasonic response with greater than the calibration block of the 5/64 of the inch diameter bottom hole. The cast stock must have the uniform equates grain structure not exceeding 500 micron maximum. Starting stock will not comply with the provision paragraph B1 through B6 of the section must be rejected. Manufacturer cylinder must be manufactured in accordance with the following requirements. Cylinder shell must be manufactured backward extension of the method to have the cleanliness of the level of the adequate ensure the proper inspection fissure for the other defect with detectable is likely to weaken the finish cylinder with the below the design strength with the requirements of reasonable smooth with the uniform surface of the finish is required now originally free with the sum defects surface of the machine otherwise condition eliminate the defect the thickness of the cylinder may not be less than prescribed minimal all thickness cylinder shell of the cylinder base must have the base top of the spherical with the spherical ellipsoidal interior base configuration with the disc radius not greater than 1.2 times the inside of the diameter. Shell of the knuckle radius may not be less than 12% of the inside diameter of the shell of the interior base of the contour to deviate the true tropospheric hemispherical ellipsoid configuration provided. Any area with deviation accomplished by increase of the base of thickness all radii, meaning with the equal to greater than knuckle radius. Each of the design have been qualified successfully passing cycling testing the paragraph C with the detailed specification of the base of design available to inspection. For freestanding cylinder, the base of thickness must be at least 2 times the metal thickness of the wall thickness along with the line of the contact between the cylinder base of the floor with the cylinder with the vertical position welding and brazing is prohibited. Each new design with significantly change with the acceptable design must be qualified for production testing prototype samples. With their 3 samples must be shipped to 100,000 pressure vessel pressure reverse cycle between 0 and surface with a pressure of 10,000 pressure reverse cycles between 0 and test pressure rated not except for the 10 cycle per minute permanent without failure. These 3 samples must be pressurized. The destruction failure not to be equivalent to less than 2.5 times the marked cylinder size. Surface pressure for each of the cylinder must remain within 1 psi. The failure must be initiated cylinder side wall longitudinal direction rate with the pressurization exceeding 200 psi gauge per second. In the specification, significant chain moving with 10% of the grade of the chain with the cylinder wall thickness, surface pressure, the diameter. 30% of the grade with the wall to water capacity base for the thickness of any chain with the material with 100% of the creep at the side of the opening any chain with the number of openings. Wall thickness, minimum wall thickness must be such for the wall strength for the maximum specified pressure for the will not exceed 80% of the minimum yield strength, not exceeding 67% minimum ultimate strength tensile strength with verified physical test and prescribed paragraph I with the section minimum wall thickness of any cylinder with the outside diameter greater than 5 inches of 0.125 inch for the calculation must be made in the following paragraph. Opening for the must comply with the following requirements. Opening is permitted with the head on the side of the center. Opening with the head of the may not exceed 1/2 of the outside diameter of the cylinder. Other openings are permitted with the head of the cylinder. If each opening does not exceed 2.625 inches with 1/2 of the outside diameter of the cylinder, with each of the less opening with separate with each over the ligament. With each ligament will separate with the 2 openings must at least have the time 3 times the average of the diameter of the 2 openings. All openings must be circular. All openings must be threaded. Threads must comply with the following. Each thread must be cleaned out with even with the traffic the gauge of the tape threads when used. They must conform with the following: A American Standard Pipe Thread, the type of conform with the requirements of the NBS Handbook H28, natural gas tape taper thread to conform with the requirements of NBS H228. 1 taper thread for the only other standard may be used with the provided length of not less than specified national pipe NPT. National MPT threads, straight threads, when used, must conform with one of the following: national gas straight thread with the type of conform with requirements of NBS Handbook H28. Uniform thread conform with the requirements of NBS Handbook H28. Control radius root thread with the UN type conform with the requirements of NBS Handbook H28. Other straight threads conform with the recognized standard that may be used to provide the requirements in paragraph E5 of the section are met. All straight threads must have at least 6 engaged threads of the type that fit with the factor of the straight safety issue with the leaf 10 and the test pressure zone with the stress must be calculated with the using appropriate head shear area with the corner of the NBS Handbook H28. Heat treatment prior to any of the cylinder with the must be shipped with the solution. Heat treatment at any gauge when the treatment appropriate aluminum alloy used. Hydrostatic test each cylinder must be shipped with the internal pressure for the review of the water jacket. The equipment method the other suitable for the equipment method to comply with the following requirements. Testing apparatus must be operated with the obtainment of the accurate data of the pressure gauge. The must be permitted the reading accurately. 1% expansion gauge must be permitted the reading total expansion accuracy over either 1% of the tenth of cubic centimeter of the test pressure must be maintained for a sufficient period to ensure the complete extension of the expansion of the cylinder. No keep the pressure for the held less than 30 per seconds. Due to the failure of the test apparatus required with the test pressure contained, the test must be repeated with the pressure increased with the 10% 100 psi gauge, whichever is lower. Test apparatus again when the failed to maintain with the test and proceed. The cylinder may be tested, may be rejected. Internal pressure applied with the cylinder before all official tests may be not exceed 90% of the test pressure. Minimum test pressure greater than the following: 450 psi gauge, regardless of the surface pressure, the 2 times the surface pressure for the 4 cylinder with the surface pressure for less than 500 psi gauge. For there, 5/3 the time of the surface pressure for the cylinder with the heavy surface pressure at least 500 psi gauge. Permanent volumetric expansion of the not exceeding 10% from the total volumetric expansion of the test pressure. Flat testing: 1 cylinder to have the random out with each out with the substation of the flat testing as follows. Test must be between the knife wedge shape that have within 6 degrees, including angle rounding and corner for the following table. The longitudinal axis for the cylinder must be at least 9 degrees with the knife edge of the test and flattening table as follows. Flattening table shown then and alternating bending according to the ASME 290 with a U the mandrel diameter not more than 6 times the wall thickness. The authorized qualified lots for the flattening fail for the flattening of the test section. When the reheated treatment, the U the test must perform in the 2 samples of 1 cylinder of the random out of each for the lot of 200 cylinders less. Each test cylinder without withstanding the flattening of the 9 times of the wall thickness without cracking the wall with alternating bend test. U the testing specimen must remain with the uncrack the inward around with the mandrel direction curvature over the cylinder wall interior edge of the distance approved with not greater than the diameter of the mandrel. Mechanical property with the tab of the 2 tab of the specimen of the 1 cylinder representing each of the lot of the 200 cylinder left of them must be shipped with the mechanical property test as follows. The test result of the test minimum must be conform with the latest of the minimum acceptable mechanical property limits of aluminum alloy specified in paragraph B with the section. Specimens must be 4D with the gauge length of the 2 inch with the width of the over the 1.5 inch take with the direction extension of the approximately 1/8 of 180 degrees each with the other provided with the gauge length of at least 24 times the thickness of the width of not over the 6 times the thickness of the authorized weight on the cylinder's wall with not over 3/16 of an inch. The specimen enclosed with the grip of the ends they must be flat with the grip end may be flat with the which one end and 1 inch of the end of the reduction section over the side of the cylinder does not permit the section of the tray. The specimen may be taken in any location direction, may be straightened and flattened. Cold pressure only, not be on by blows when specimens are used. The inspector report must be shown with the specimen where shall be taken the period with the heat and specimen with the aim with the purpose of forbidding yield strength with the tension must be strength the corresponding to the permanent strength. The 10% of the gauge length with the yield strength must determine either the offset with the method of the extension under load of the method is prescribed in ASTM B5557. And using extension under the lobe of the method, the total strain with the corresponding with the strength at which the 2/10% of the permanent strain of the curve will determine sufficient accuracy of the calculation of the elastic extension from the gauge length with the under the appropriate load. Adding of the 2/10% of the gauge length with the all extension of the calculation must be based on the elastic modules to 10 million psi. In the event of the controversy, inch strain with the diagram must be applied with the yield strength determined at 2/10% offset. For the purpose of the strain measure, the initial strain must be set with the wind specimen that is used under 6,000 psi strain indicator reading being set with a calculator with the corresponding strain with the crosshead with the speed with the testing of the machine not exceeding 1/8 of an inch minimum during the yielded strength. Determine rejected cylinder reheat treated rejected cylinder is authorized one time subsequent to the cylinders must pass all the prescribed tests acceptable duties inspection additional requirements 178.35 of the inspector verify the compliance of the provision paragraph B by performance of witnessing performance of chemical analysis each metal of the case lab of the other unit starting material obtained with the certified chemical analysis material of the cylinder manufacturer each metal of the cast of the material or obtaining certified check with the analysis with one cylinder one of each of the 200 cylinders left certificate containing the data containing the data of the indicated compliant with the material specification obtained. The inspector must verify all material inspection obtained with the material. The producer certification, ultrasonic inspection must be performed, verified along half of the period in accordance with the paragraph B5 of the section. Inspector must also determine each of the cylinder compliant with the specification by selecting samples of the check and analysis performed by other materials to produce the verifying with the producer. The prescribed minimum thickness was met with the measuring width for the measurement of the wall thickness, verifying the identification of the material the prior initial production of the design chain of the verifying of the design qualification testing prescribed in paragraph C6 of the section has been formed acceptable results. Definitions 1. Specification allowed mean for the group of the cylinders successfully produced having the same configuration specified material for the construction process of the manufacturer heating treatment, equipment for the manufacturer heat treatment, and condition for the time of the temperature for the atmosphere during the treatment, and okay for the left side of the 200 cylinders about any cylinder process using required destruction physical testing need not to be counted as being one of the 200. Inspector reports and additional information required in 178.35 of the required chemical analysis must also include the alloy designation, appropriate applicable information iron, the titanium, zinc, magnesium, any other applicable element used in the construction of a cylinder. Alright, 178.47, specification 4DS, welded stainless steel cylinder of the aircraft used. Type and stuff of the surface spread for the .4DS cylinder is used with the welded stainless steel with the two seamless hemisphere with a circumferential welded cylinder, both of the water capacity not over 100 pounds, for the surface spread for at least 500 pounds. Not over 900 psi gauge. Steel of the type 304, 321, 347 the stainless steel with the authorized proper welding. Perceive the heat of the steel with the made within the specification in table 1, paragraph B of the chemical analysis slightly over the specified range, except for the satisfactory in all of the respect the provided by the talent shown in table 2. Paragraph B is not accepted except for the proof of the associated administrator found chemical analysis authorized. Identification of materials must be identified with any suitable for the manufacturer cylinders must be manufactured using the equipment the profit adequate to ensure that each of the cylinder produces conform to the requirements for the subpart. No defect with the permanent likely to weak within the slightly finished cylinder with the appreciable reasonable smooth with the uniform surface finish is required. No abrupt change within the wall thickness is permitted. Welding procedure for the operator must be qualified in accordance with CGA pamphlet C3. Seams of the sphere and cylinder must be fused well within the seam, but must be made with both type of the means for the provide with the accomplishing complete with the penetration with the joint. Attachments for the containment of the authorized fusion welding provided with such attachment much of the welding stainless for the corner of the area of the section. Wall thickness, the minimum wall thickness must be such that the wall strap of the minimum specified test for the pressure not over 660,000 psi gauge, minimum wall thickness of 4,000 of an inch, 40,000 of an inch. Required with the dynamic containment, the calculation must be made in the following formula. The calculation figure made of the following formula. And then it shows the calculation for the cylinders by this formula and heat treatment the seamless hemisphere of the cylinder. Stress relief of the annealed forming welding container must be stress relieved at the temperature of 775 degrees Fahrenheit plus or minus 25 degrees. Processing treatment before hydrostatic testing. Opening with the container. Opening must comply with the following. Each opening with the container must provide with a fitting off of the pad welding stainless steel securely attached to the container by using welding attachment. Fitting of the off of the pads must be adequate to prevent leakage. Threads must comply with the following. Threads must be clean and cut even without the checks and tape gauges. Tape threads in length of not less than the specified American standard taper pipe threads. The tape threads that having a leaf with a 4 engaged thread, but they have a fit with the calculated strength with the strength of the lights 10 times the test pressure for the containment with the gasket required to adequate prevent leakage. Process treatment. Each container may be hydrologically pressure for the test. Water check of the leaf to 100% of them with 110% of the test pressure. Maintain with the pressure for minimum 3 minutes total. Permanent expansion that will be recorded, including inspections and report. Hydrostatic test. Each cylinder must successfully withstand hydrostatic test. As follow the test must be obtained with the water check it. Obtained with the accurate data of the pressure gauge must be permit reading the accuracy of 1%. Expansion gauge must permit the reading of the total expansion for the accuracy of the 1% of the 10 cubic centimeters. Pressure must be maintained with at least 30 seconds of sufficiently longer to ensure the completely expansion due to the period with the test apparatus. Test pressure cannot be maintained. Test must be repeated with the pressure and increase the 10% of the 100 psi gauge, whichever is lower. Permanent volumetric expansion may not exceed 10% of the total vital metric expansion. Test pressure each of the container may be tested at least 2 times surface pressure. Container must be more than inspected. Any wall thickness lower than the required paragraph F of the section must cover the rejection. Bulges, cracks must be covered. The rejection welded joints, defects, and exceeding the requirements of the paragraph K of the section must cover the rejection. Radiographic inspection. Radiographic inspection required in all welded joints except with the internal pressure except with the distribution of this disinterested impactor opening less than 25% the container radio diameter need not to be subject to radiographic inspection of evidence of any of the defects likely to seriously weaken the container and the cause for rejection. Radiographic inspection performed and subsequent to hydrostatic test. The burst test. One container taken with the radium out of 200. Less must be hydrostatic test. The destruction rupture pressure must be included with the part of the inspector report. Flattening test. The flattening test must be performed as follows. Spheres must be welded between the pair weld steel plate. Steel plate for the press for the welded seam with the right with the angle of the plate with the test one with the sphere of the random one of each of the leaves 200 or left the hydrostatic test of the projecting appurtency must be covered over the mechanical means or prior with the crushing cylinders. The test must be between the knife edge wedge shape of the M 6-degree angle rounded ½ inch for the radius. One cylinder taken in a random out with each of these 200 or left after the hydrostatic press test. Acceptable result flattening and burst of the level burst test. Acceptable result of flattening burst test of the solid flattening required with the 50% of the original outside of the diameter without cracking. Burst pressure must be at least 3 times the surface pressure. Rejected contained with the rejected welding seam with the welded prior to the heat treatment of the authorized subsequent layer 2 of the containment must be heat treatment and impact with all the prescribed tests. Duties and instructions for the additional requirements 178.35. An inspector must verify all the tests for the conducted with a temperature of 60 degrees Fahrenheit 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Markings must be stamped plainly, permanently with the temperature, permanently attachment with the metal with the nameplate, permanently secured with the container means other than soft solder. 178.50 specification 4B welded braid steel cylinders.